The best way towards long-term wealth is through owning real estate. However, I believe that the best way to quit your job initially was largely through managing other people's properties. I did think the boats were kind of like a blue moon opportunity. I still have that business, but a large component of that is the fact that I, manage 8 lake houses and have those 7 boats. But to me, the houses really, once you get up and running, are not that much work. They don't take that much time. They don't require, trading your time for dollars. So you hire a couple virtual assistants, you have your weekly check-in with them. You check once a day to make sure that they're on top of things, make sure that, you're getting bookings, that your pricing is right.
You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Wil Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, let's begin. All right, Slick Talkers, we are back. And this week we are sitting down with Jeremy Werden, who is the co-founder of BNB Calc, a widely used software platform that enables real estate investors and property managers to generate branded property analysis reports. Starting his career by managing vacation rentals, Jeremy built an ownership portfolio in his 20s by securing investment partnerships. He hosts the Short-Term Rental Pros podcast and has a significant social media following of over 200,000 followers across multiple platforms. Additionally, Jeremy runs a mastermind program that helps others develop co-hosting business and acquire high potential rental properties. And fun story that you'll hear us talk about in this episode is that Jeremy didn't actually just start with short-term rentals. He actually started with boats, and he's got an interesting way of how the boat business eventually started to become less of a business that was primary for him and more into short-term rentals, and started to become, shifting from a primary business for him to a secondary support business for his investment properties. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and let's get Jeremy right on the show. All right, Jeremy Werden, we're finally here on Slick Talk. How are we doing today?
I'm good now that you're having me on, Will.
Well, thanks for also having me on your pod, the STR Pros podcast. It was a lot of fun to record with you in person. So obviously returning the favor. I wish I had a cool, sexy studio for you to be here in Denver with me to record. But hey, time of the times where virtual recording is a blessing in disguise. So you are coming in from New York City. Jeremy, I gave a quick intro in the beginning of this episode about your career and your background in the industry, on entrepreneurship, the crazy amount of things that you are doing from BNB Calc, obviously, to owning a real estate portfolio, managing that real estate portfolio as a host, with many other things, and your own podcast on top of it. Do you sleep?
I think my eye bags today are like a 5 out of 10. So it looks like I got some sleep last night.
There we go. Well, not only that, but you and your fiance, I get to see a lot of cool background behind the scenes on her content, running around New York City with big influential names. And it's been a lot of fun. So for the listeners, grab the link in the show notes. You can check out some of Jeremy's content on his Instagram. But I want to kind of go into entrepreneurial beginnings with you, Jeremy, in the sense of what drew you to start managing vacation rentals? And how did that evolve into BNB Calc? Because I think I can draw the lineage as I've gotten to know you, and obviously I've heard the story, but for the listeners who may not have heard or understand kind of the full cycle of your entrepreneurship journey, where does it start?
Yeah, well, my goal was to get to hang out with Wil Slickers more, and that was the goal. So I thought, all right, I reverse engineered that and said, all right, what do I need in order for Wil to not only have me on his pod, but we hung out, we stayed in the same room. There were 4 beds, 2 bunk bedrooms in Nashville, so that was great. We were both in Phoenix together this last week. I think you were kind of running around with a chicken with your head cut off. So unfortunately, we didn't get to kick it there as much as I would have liked. But so really, I thought, okay, how do I hang out with Mr. And by the way, you don't need a podcast studio in Colorado. for me to hang out. It does help my brother lives there, but I'm down to hang out. I mean, if you ski or snowboard, I don't discriminate. Either one. Let's go.
All right.
All right.
Ski a pre,
All right.
does that count? Can I sit back at the lodge? Just kidding.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Whatever it takes. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, I definitely, I'm in a case of, kind of a motivated entrepreneurial kid, did the whole lemonade stand, mowed lawns, babysat. Athletics to me were kind of that outlet for competition at a young age. I went to University of North Carolina. I was on the junior varsity basketball team. Didn't make the varsity basketball team, which actually my buddy who works out of this office, he actually just went back to Asia to play professionally there. But he's an example of someone who did make the varsity team and then did play professionally for a year. That was not me. I got the axe. And from there, I was like, all right, what's the next logical thing to do if, athletics is done? I went, all right, I need to get an internship. I had good grades. I was studying computer science, which to me, I thought, textbook, how to get a good job. Didn't work out. I applied to, 20 different internships that summer, including the company my dad had worked for my entire life. And I got rejected from every single one of them. And I was like, all right, well, maybe this is a sign I got to go down a more entrepreneurial path. I think that's more fitting to me and, my personality and interest. So initially started pretty much making websites for clients. Did that for a few years, with a colleague from school. We're actually, built a business hiring people towards our later years of college, and then had some disagreements there with my colleagues there, and started doing it freelance. Did it for a client, private equity startup based in New York, and was going pretty well. I thought, this is an interesting client. They extended the offer to bring me in full time, and I accepted that offer. I was working for the finance startup fintech for a year or so, and then COVID hit in March of 2020. The world stopped, and so did our fundraising. And we only had like several months of runway. I was, even though I wasn't really being paid much, I was seen as like higher overhead. So we needed to cut overhead, and Jeremy's salary was put on the chopping block. So at about that time, I was thinking, all right, I got to do a business of my own where I'm in control. I can't have somebody texting me telling me, hey, heads up, like we gotta trim down your paycheck. So I was looking for a sign, and I was watching The Ozarks on Netflix, and in one of the episodes in a relatively early season, Marty goes out and buys a boat to house a casino. That's not what I did, but I thought, oh, interesting, buying a boat. I think I could rent these things out. So initially bought several boats, started renting them out at a local lake. Folk who were renting the boats were also buying lake houses, or maybe they already owned them. And I was 23 at the time. They had the thought in the back of their head to potentially rent out their houses. And then, once I got going in conversation with them, they were like, hey, we thought about this, but, we haven't really wanted to do it ourselves. Seems like that'd be something you're interested in. And I said, absolutely. Heck yeah. Sign me up. Give me the keys. I got it. So I started property managing lake houses for homeowners. Started seeing how much these lake houses were making, and was like, holy crap. I mean, the boats were an eye-opening. The first boat I bought for $5,600. I rented for $2,000 for the first 10 days, which was really like an aha moment. But then the houses, it was like they're renting for $4,000 for a week. I knew how much these homes cost. I knew that the mortgages for them were like $2,000-$3,000 a week or a month. So kind of had another aha moment of like, all right, I gotta own these houses. So started fundraising money to buy these houses, started creating all these materials to go out and buy houses. These materials that I created, which were like PowerPoint presentations and Excel spreadsheets, turned into BNB Calc, which is branded property analysis reports. So, property, or P&L statements with charts, branding that you can quickly run and then share with investors, banks, business partners. That was really built out of the necessity of I need to raise money to buy these houses. In addition to I need to send potential homeowners reports, sharing with them the potential that their homes could make, and how the economics work having a manager like myself. So BNB Calc was really a tool to help me grow my portfolio. And yeah, over the last few years, have been growing my portfolio, have been sharing some of the things I've learned on social media. My fiance, she started doing social media, so we've really built kind of a media business, media operation on top of BNB Calc, our software business, on top of boats and houses across the country that we furnish and rent to others.
All right, Slick Talkers, BNB Calc is crushing and can tell hospitality entrepreneurs just like yourself if a property or an investment property is going to perform. Well, not only does it need to perform, but you need to be able to operate. And a great tool for you to operate your business and make sure that you have hospitality at the core and using great technology is our partners at Hostfully. So get with Hostfully, go to hostfully.com. You can tell them that Wil sent you from Slick Talk. There's a link in the show notes and a promo code that gives you a special offer just for you. From distribution to marketplace management of other technologies, calendar syncing and management, and many other features, Hostfully is a great property management software for operators who are just getting started or building out a full-on professionally branded property management business. So, like I said earlier, grab the link in the show notes. Make sure you like and subscribe to all things Hostfully. Give them the love that you give all of our guests and, of course, this podcast. And yeah, let them know that Wil sent you. Now we're back to the episode with Jeremy Werden, and here we go. Dang. So I want to go into the boat biz for a little bit. I love that initial start. I think it's always cool to see how people kind of get in the industry through side hustles or projects and thinking like, oh, this is going to be the business, but really the business that was just like a stepping stool to the business that you actually go to create, which is getting your portfolio and obviously doing the same thing for other investors with BNB Calc. So how hard is a boat business? And can I kind of ask maybe some questions, or like, where did you get the money for buying these boats? Was it saved up? Like, kind of walk me through that initial plan and idea of how you're going to build this boat empire and then slowly getting into the short-term rental sector.
Yeah. So if I could have started on day one and gone out and bought houses, I probably would have done that. But, I was 23 years old. I think I probably had about $20,000 saved from building websites. Like my senior year of college, I built a lumber company for my, friend's parents. My friend just randomly had like one of the largest Southeast lumber distributor companies, and they put out a request for proposal, RFP, for to build their website. And I bid, and apparently I learned this years later that my bid was a factor of 10 lower than anybody else's bid. So that was my savings, was from building websites for clients. And that first boat I bought, again, was between $5,000 and $6,000. It wasn't, I'm not going to say that was nothing, but it was something that was actually attainable to me. The second boat I bought, we rebuilt it, so it was pretty much got for like nothing, and then just fully rebuilt the boat. Would never do that ever again. Absolutely not. That was way too much. That was an intensive process, and learned a lot about pontoon boats, but probably not worth the time. You could just buy a pontoon boat. You don't have to go through changing out the motor and replacing the flooring and replacing the electricals. But then the third boat, bought through dealership financing, realized if you have above a 600 credit score at that time, and it's still probably the case, you could get a boat $0 down. And I mean, it took
How high is that interest though? Was it like a shit ton of interest, like 30% over 5 years or something?
So this was March of 2020 when interest rates were low, but I think it was like 7% over 5 years. So it wasn't actually that bad. And the monthly payment came out to probably $600 a month. But that was the nicest boat in the fleet. I was renting that particular boat like $500, $600 a day. So
okay.
the math made sense. Yeah, the math.
Yeah.
If you could, in one summer make 40 grand, and the debt on the boat was 35 grand. It worked out.
I am in the wrong business. Why don't we just go start another boat biz? Let's go do that.
So I tell people, because I was sharing all this on social media. I probably started mostly posting initially about the boats, because the boats were my biggest business 2020 and for part of 2021. The houses have definitely overtaken the boats at this point, but initially that's what I was posting on social media. And I was like, guys, I really think that right now is like a once in a blue moon thing for boats. I mean, in North Carolina, all these businesses from COVID were banned. Like you couldn't, half the businesses were shut down, but boat rental companies were, that was seen as safe. You're outside, you're driving
you're
around.
Open air.
Exactly. Yeah. So that it was like families are like, oh, we're stuck in our house. We haven't, done anything for 5 months. What should we do? And let's rent a boat was an idea that a lot of people had. So I think we could have had like 30 boats that summer, and we probably could have rented every boat every day. That is no longer the case. And I think I did, shoot myself in the foot a little bit, because we went from being the only boat rental business on that particular lake to like, I think at one point there was like 4 boat rental businesses on that lake. Oh, wow. I think like 2 of them have shut down because there's just not that much, in 2024, there's not that much demand. But yeah, at that time it was opportunistic.
Do you think that could work though in a different market, maybe outside North Carolina? Do you think there's other kind of little pockets around the country that people can kind of get into this? I think this would be a great add-on service. I'm assuming you still have the biz to kind of support your lake house. Okay. Yes.
So we actually did expand to a second lake. So we have 7 boats now. There was a point where we had 4 on the lake that we have a bunch of houses on, and then 3 on another lake that had no houses. But this other lake was closer to, large metropolitan areas and had a lot more demand, and people were willing to pay a lot more. The issue was at a certain point, it became a logistical headache. I didn't have a full-time crew there. I was, managing this boat rental and the properties from, thousands of miles away. When a boat would break, we would have, and also a big issue during COVID was the supply chain was all screwed up. So it would take a month to get parts. So if a part went out in a boat, you'd have to cancel like the next 3-4 weeks of reservations. So at that second lake, we were actually making more money. There was more demand. And honestly, that lake still probably has a lot of unmet demand to this day. But it was like 23-year-old Jeremy turned into 24-year-old Jeremy, turned into 25-year-old Jeremy. And, I went from, under 6 figures of property revenue to 7-figure plus property revenue. So now it's it's not as the juice, the juice might be worth the squeeze at a certain time, but then you get to a point where the juice might not be worth the squeeze.
Yeah, when other revenue streams take off and become primary, obviously it's going to demand support to go in other areas. So that makes sense. And I don't know, I just like listening to a lot of other podcasts in our space and seeing a lot of other entrepreneurs in our industry, from property managers traditionally that you got to see at VRMA, comparatively to maybe like an STR Wealth, where it's a lot of Airbnb hosts trying to get in, maybe a couple of Airbnb quote unquote investors trying to figure it out. It's very different, groups. But the cool thing I think with this industry, if we can all take a 30,000 foot view rather than just focusing on hosting or property management, you can actually build quite the ecosystem in a destination of boat rentals that go with your houses, that can go with the Turo plus blah blah blah, right? Like you can build some pretty incredible ancillary revenue streams on top of the mainstream. So I always think it's kind of cool, especially if you're like, I'm in Denver, I'm landlocked, I don't get to go on a boat often. So to hear the boat story, I'm kind of like, that sounds fun.
And
wish I was on a boat right now.
My boat company was called Boat STR, so Boat Stir. And to me, it was just short-term rentals. Like short-term rentals encompasses anything that you can buy or get access to, and then re-rent on, for a day, 2 days, 3 days. So initially, like I saw, short-term rentals is like the all-encompassing thing. Now it's, obviously, I'd say when you hear short-term rentals, it's specific it's either short-term rentals or Airbnbs. Like those are those two are interchangeable. But to me, it was like everything. Like it could be dumpsters. Like I think I even got the domain name like dump str, like dumpster. Because I was like, oh, we could do like dumpster rentals. I was like yachtster. Like we could do yacht rentals. Like I was thinking just anything that I could like get access to and rent out.
Yeah, I know a guy we've had on the show, Caleb Hannon, who bought a garbage truck, and they're out in Lake Norman, and he's like,
shout out North Carolina.
Yeah, Lake Norman. They got quite a significant portfolio that they manage, and I think I kind of DM'd him on Instagram. I was like, "Why'd you buy a garbage truck? This is so random. Are you doing okay? Is it like a crisis?" And he's like, "No, dude, this is actually like supporting our business. It's vertically integrating. We're actually able to make some good revenue off of it. It's profitable." So it makes sense as if you could support the core, right? Like I think support the core biz, which is short-term rentals, property management, hospitality. Super fascinating. But Jeremy, I want to go into a little bit of your entrepreneurship journey in the sense of technology. So creating your own solution for your own problem, right? Like you built BNB Calc to help yourself with property investors and owners that you're going to take over management for. Now it's actually a product that any host can use. You've talked about a lot of times on your podcasts. I see a lot of interesting data and insights that you post on LinkedIn. So building a software versus managing vacation homes is very, very different. So kind of walk me through that process in the sense of how do you balance the two? Where have you learned? Did you bring in like team members to help with the technology piece? Because I know if I try to build something in terms of software, it would not look good. It wouldn't be a product. It would be a piece of shit. But I would love to know like kind of how you're balancing the two different businesses, or even just all three on top of the other stuff that you do in terms of masterminds and stuff like that. I think entrepreneurs get told this advice of, riches and niches. Stay in your lane. Don't go too crazy in the sense of adding this business and adding that business and doing that. And so now you're juggling a lot of plates. What's the advice and what's the process that you have for other entrepreneurs that also want to kind of build supporting businesses around their ecosystem?
Yeah, so I'd say first thing is build your foundation. Like don't, I want to launch a software business. Okay, well, and I think a lot of people, they go, oh, I have like some idea for software. But like they don't necessarily, I'm not going to say I can code. Like I can. I'm not, I'm not meant to do that. Like with coding, and now it's a little different, but back in my day, which is crazy when I say back in my day, when I coded was like 6-7 years ago. I mean, you spend 10% of your time doing 90% of the code, and then you spend 90% of your time finding bugs. And I'm not patient for the bugs. Like I can't sit there and find what's wrong with it, but I understand it. Like I get how it works. I get what I can plug together. So if you look at BNB Calc, really at the beginning, it was like, hey, this is a process that I'm doing in my daily life, which is, I'm running the numbers on properties. So I'm going to AirDNA, Rabu, like I'm going to all these different sources for revenue numbers. I'm finding the numbers. I'm plugging them into a spreadsheet. Okay, I'm finding the tax information about properties. I'm going to, the GIS, or I'm going to, Zillow or whatever it might be, and I'm copying and pasting tax information. Like I'm getting a quote from like an insurance provider, and I'm going all over, and it's just taking me way too much time to do this. Once I've put the numbers in, I'm populating a chart. I have to like drag over the cells, and I have to click a button and then create a chart. And then I have to paste that chart into my Excel. And then when I send it to an investor, I then have to like try to export the entire thing, make sure it's readable, send it off to the investor. And then I probably have to hop on a call with the investor just to like click the tabs, like click, okay, this is linked to this. And I'm like, this process just sucks. Like it's just a terrible process. And I know, because I have at least enough of a background that, there's an API for this, and there's an API for this, and there's an API for this. And I can just tap into the APIs and aggregate the information in one place. So a process that may have taken 25 minutes before takes 20 seconds now. So I credit that to not necessarily being in the weeds. And I mean, I actually tried to build it myself initially. And I showed it to my co-founder, Parker. And I walked him through the process. And actually, one thing I do want to say is that being able to like quickly test and validate an idea is really important. So, I have a couple 100,000 followers on social media, and I was able to, when I had spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations, I would show them. I'd show what they look like, and people would go, "Oh, dude, like that's sick. Like I tried to make a spreadsheet or I tried to make a PowerPoint, and yours looks better. Can I just have yours?" And I'd say, "How much are you willing to pay for that?" People would be like, "I don't know, 30, 40 bucks." I'm like, "Okay, sweet. Let's do it." Put it on a link in bio, bang. Like I had a couple viral posts and I sold, I don't know, maybe in total like 500 of these things, and there may be 1,000. I'd have to check. And I was like, honestly, I kind of feel guilty. Like I know this could be better, but now that I've actually tested and validated that there's a market for this beyond myself, it's not the biggest market in the world. I'm not going to act like, our short-term rental sphere is like, billions of people, but I think there are thousands of people who this would be a very, very helpful tool for. And given my background and understanding, I know the tool can be made. So, and then, I guess maybe having the humility of, all right, I'm going to try to make it myself. All right, there's something not really right with this. And then having, my co-founder, look at it and kind of like, okay, I know you can make it. Like, I know you're better than me at this. We were in class together. Like, I know your skill set. Like, I know you're better at this than me. All right, what's it gonna, let's figure out how, to let you, or, what's it gonna take so you take this thing to the next level.
Yeah, it's always good to know when you got some weaknesses that you can delegate things to and be like, yeah, you could do this. I'm not good.
But at least I could communicate to him and show him the product. Like I could get the product to a place where then he understood it, and could run with it.
For sure.
So I got it like close enough.
Yeah, you always got to communicate the vision of it too, right? It's never going to be perfect, especially an MVP or a V1, right? Like you're going to have to, go through a lot of iterations, and if you can communicate like what the functionality and features are supposed to be, then yeah, it should be able to get good to go. But I'm now curious. We kind of talked about this in our pre-chat. The tech landscape in our industry is quite interesting, and most operators don't get to experience it outside of using the products themselves in their own operations, such as, a Wheelhouse or a AirDNA or whatever property management software. You're now actually on the other side. So give me your overall opinion and thoughts on the tech landscape in our industry. What needs improvement? What is going well? How can the industry mature and compete with hotels and technology? Like, give me your high level overview in the tech landscape.
Yeah. So I would say, and it's crazy to think that, because like for most of my experience in this, I've been like, wow, I feel like the new guy, I feel like, this is the start. And now it's like, I'm actually looked at as like a veteran in the space. And like, I've been around for a long time, which is, I just turned 28 years old last week. So to really feel like I am like genuinely like a veteran, and I do have a lot of experience and can kind of speak back to the old days of the industry is crazy. But I would say 4 years ago when I started, the tech sucked.
And so you're gonna have a lot of people listening to this pod that are gonna be like, I've been around for 25 years.
Yeah, totally. All right, I digress. And that's you're totally right there. And VRMA, I was at VRMA and I met people who've been around, and their parents like owned a property management business in Outer Banks, and now they're running. I've totally. But okay,
for sure.
I will just say that in 2020, the software sucked. Like when I started, it was all bad. Like I tried a couple PMS, and they both like the Verbo connection, like they didn't work. And I kept getting double bookings all the time. And I only had a couple listings. So I had to like manually go and check and make sure I didn't get a double booking. And, when I got a double booking, I'd call Airbnb and be like, please don't like hurt me. Like I got a double booking. And then I'd call Verbo and please don't hurt me. I got a double booking. So like even that simple of a thing, like double bookings were a massive issue, at least to me 4 years ago. Now I don't really have those issues. And now it's more like, okay, what like AI tools should we implement, or the pricing tools have gotten really good. I think, when I started, they were okay, but I remember like the lake I was on, Price Labs didn't have like data. And I would imagine that Wheelhouse or beyond, like they didn't have any data on that lake. So I couldn't use the pricing tool. I couldn't use it like at first. Like it didn't make any sense. But then I looked at it 6 months later and I was like, oh, it actually makes sense now. And now 4 years later, it's like it's used the fact that I have properties and I've been using them for a few years and it keeps, triangulating and getting better and better. So I would just say that the 4 years ago, I would have, if you had me on this podcast, I don't even know if you had this podcast 4 years ago. You did. All right. You're an OG.
2018, baby.
All right. So if you had me back in the OG days, I probably would have been like, yeah, I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think there needs to be this tool called BNB Calc. I think someone needs to make it. But now I'd say honestly, Guesty has raised so much money. Hostfully, Hospitable, they've gone so much better. Like I'll give them credit. They've listened to a lot of feedback. Like I've had multiple times people like, why haven't you switched over to someone else? And be like, because when I have issues with them, I tell them what the issues I have with their software and they fix it. I'm loyal when it's due. Like if I'm going to complain and then you allocate, a couple developers to creating the feature that I think you need.
Yeah.
I'm not going to leave.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Do you think there what parts, talked about this on our pre-chat, and so not trying to repeat ourselves here, but got to have Andrew Kitchell on a couple times going over the tech landscape, all the different verticals and categories, over 26 or 23 categories, over 150 plus teams working on specific products and services within the technology landscape on short-term rentals. It's getting quite extensive. And I know from smaller Airbnb focused host conferences, no one knows really about these technology pieces. Like, oh, I'm just on Airbnb, right? And then you get to the VRMA side and it's like everyone and their mother is using 100 softwares, which makes no sense. And I'm not trying to generalize. So for the listeners that are going to either one of these groups, sorry, I'm not trying to generalize, but in the sense of it just doesn't make sense on where the industry is connecting the dots for everyone. And so, yes, there's all these categories open, but I would love to know, do you think there's a category missing? Is there tech outside of BNB Calc? Let's take BNB Calc outside the picture for a second. But I would love to see where should we innovate more? Where should technology be popping up? How can we better serve guests? How can we better serve hosts? How can we better serve our teams on the ground? I'm just trying to think if you have any insight or an idea or maybe just fun. Shoot the shit.
Yeah, and I think Andrew Kitchell, I've had him on. He has a crazy story, which it is interesting how many folks have went from operators to then, they identified a pain point while operating and built a software to alleviate the pain point they felt, and then had other people, sign on to it, which I think you see a lot in short-term rentals. I'm an example of that. Andrew's an example of that. Jeff from Host GPO is an example of that. So yeah, I really think that there's honestly companies and if you think through the entire guest experience, all right, I book a property, Airbnb, Vrbo, dynamic pricing has helped me make that booking decision. Then I'm sent a guidebook. There's several companies focused on guidebooks. There was a guy at Verma who just sold a company entirely focused on guidebooks, which I thought was crazy. I was like, there's a company that literally all they did was guidebooks and they had, 10,000 paying customers. Interesting.
You talking about Andy from TouchStay?
Yeah, exactly. So there was literally a company entirely focused on guidebooks. There's companies entirely focused on upsells. So once you get into the house, how do you, make more money off the person? So have the person, where'd that couch come from? Where'd that chair come from? What are experiences that we can pay for while we're here? Then there's entire companies focused on retargeting previous guests or previous, StayFi, Arthur from StayFi. Which it is really cool also at this point to be I feel like I know, and you obviously the founders and, early employees at all these companies, which is really, really neat. But yeah, StayFi, which, grab their emails, retarget them. So honestly, I think through because I'm all about if I can think of a new idea, a new opportunity, I'll tell someone I think can do it, or I'll act on it myself. And I would say at this point, I don't want to say it's a mature industry, but I frankly can't think of too many new things. I mean, I think like Guesty, what they're doing, and Hostfully is they're creating like APIs where developers can build apps on top of their ecosystem. And I think that's probably, if they're pitching to investors, they're saying that's the future. The future is, we're the hub. Like, we're going to have all these innovators on the edge, but they're going to link into us. And, that is what you're seeing with, the AI tools. The AI tools are being built on the top of the PMS.
All right, Slick Talkers, let's actually talk about something here. Learning lessons from other entrepreneurs, building, whether it's a mastermind or a retreat business, it's really important to be connected. We're all in hospitality, but we're also all business owners and entrepreneurs that have huge drive and ambitions. And sometimes being an entrepreneur can be lonely. And whether you have partners or are solo, there's just something so valuable about being in the same room of like-minded people and having a curated experience where there's fun and actual relaxation, but also education and insight to actually help move your business to the next step, or even just help your personal leadership development grow. So Good Morning Retreats is a business that me and Michael Golden launched on the side of Good Morning Hospitality, our other podcast, where we're doing 2 retreats a year. We have a summer edition and a winter edition. Coming up January 13th through the 15th is our January edition. You can go to goodmorningretreats.com and hit the Winter Edition 2025 tab and see the details. We're going to be at Bolt Farm Treehouse in Tennessee, and we have about 30 amazing operators showing up. But here's the catch. We have a couple seats left. Between Muir cabins, tree houses, and domes, it's a first come, first serve to get to experience the Bolt Farm Treehouse and, of course, connect with other like-minded entrepreneurs in the same industry as you. So if you're interested, go to the link, register, and show your interest so that way we can reach out and schedule a call to see if this is a good fit for your intentions and, of course, the group that has overall collectively been building these last couple months. So thank you so much to all of our retreat attendees last time and this summer. In July, we hosted one in Auburn, and it was so much fun that we decided let's keep this train going. And I promise we're not going to try to price gouge you. This is a very fair price. We encompass all of the costs in the price. So your lodging, the food, the experiences, all the stuff that is included is in one ticket price. You don't have to add on anything else outside of your flights. So make sure you go to goodmorningretreats.com and we'll see you on the next one. We're back to the episode with Jeremy Werden. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm an advisor to Bestie AI. They're crushing it and really, actually, I would say leading the charge in the AI sector of the industry. And it's been super cool to see because the API piece of this industry.
Well, we've got Host Buddy, Host AI, Bestie, like there's like a lot. There's just a lot of, players who are kind of, rushing in and then they're building on top of PMS versus I think maybe 5-10 years ago it was like building the PMS. Now it's like we're building tools on top of the PMS.
Well, this industry has also never seen AI, like in real life. Obviously, Booking.com and Expedia, these big OTAs, been using AI for centuries. Amazon, right? You can look at all these companies that truly do use AI to target to make sure that you're coming back, and they're finding ways to get you to get that conversion where they're getting their commission. But our industry really hasn't seen the AI shift, and even Airbnb hasn't implemented full AI. Yeah, they acquired Game Planner for $200 million, but that company wasn't even real. It had it had 2 employees or 3 employees and no revenue because they're the founders of the people that created Siri. So they really were acqui-hire, and we haven't even seen the full implementation of AI in Airbnb yet. So I think it's going to be crazy to see the actual application of AI rather than just these, I think outside of Bestie, I can't confirm the rest, but or not Bestie, but the others I can't confirm on, but I just know it's all right, ChatGPT is great. And I got to talk to some of the early employees at Homes and Villas by Marriott. And, they're talking originally our search engine, our AI search was a chatbot. We started with chat and realized we don't need another chat. We don't need a ChatGPT. We need something that's actually going to generate bookings and actually going to generate personalized customization bookings. There's so much data that you can get and AI can circulate through. So anyways, without going down a tangent, I do want to go kind of into an entrepreneurial conversation with you on kind of building a brand and the way you get to leverage, social media and how that kind of can sometimes help or hinder your business. So how have you built and maintained your personal and professional brands? Because I know you have two, like Jeremy Werden, host of STR Pros podcast, and then obviously influence on social, which is, like you said, 100,000 plus or 200,000 plus followers on Instagram. But then also, building this professional biz of BNB Calc. You got your hosting biz, you got your Boatster, you got all these things, right? So how do you balance the two, and what kind of lessons along the way have you learned in the term of multiple brands that kind of go side by side, but also have their own individuality?
Yeah, no, it's a lot, and I definitely spend a good bit of time and try to like think through like how I should be, spending my time. That's like, you spend your time thinking how you should spend your time. Wow, that sounds it's a tongue twister. But yeah, so take a step back. Initially, I started with the boats, and my goal was early on, like, I want a business that I can call my own, where I live and die by my own sword. I don't need to go work for somebody else. So for me, initially, that was boats and property management. I wanted to buy these homes. I still believe, I believe then, and I still believe that the best way towards long-term wealth is through owning real estate. However, I believe that the best way to quit your job initially was largely through managing other people's properties. I did think the boats were kind of like a blue moon opportunity. I still have that business, but a large component of that is the fact that I, manage 8 lake houses and have those 7 boats. But to me, the houses really, once you get up and running, are not that much work. They don't take that much time. They don't require, trading your time for dollars. So you hire a couple virtual assistants, you have your like weekly check-in with them. You check once a day to make sure that they're on top of things, make sure that, you're getting bookings, that your pricing is right. But it's not something where, I really feel like if I have more and more houses, like I have less and less time. So, you try to build things that you can automate and create the machine that can operate without you. So for me, that's largely what the house is in. The houses then free up my time to do other things. So BNB Calc, that takes time. We have a great team. I do my part, but it's the same thing. You build it, and then you hire, and you try to make it so you can focus on high level things. And you have team members who are doing the day-to-day, customer support. Things of that sort. So, in a decent place there. I also have, BNB Calc, we're helping thousands of people, but I do help people on a much more personal level to, the two things that I help folk with are either acquiring what I call mega properties. Like I want to help people get very high, potential properties. Like if someone's like, hey, I want to buy a condo, can you help me? I'm like, there's not a lot of help I can give you there. But if you want to create like a crazy experience that can really, push the needle, that's what I geek out about. So, and then also, how do you manage other people's properties? How do you get management clients? How do you build a cash flowing co-hosting business? That is the other thing. So I also, on top of what you said, I, through social media, through BNB Calc, also do, have a mastermind. People come out to New York. We have a fun time. But also, like, one aspect that's cool about that is I get to test things. So I get to test strategies, not just on my own portfolio, but the 50 or so folk that I work with intimately. We all test different things, and we get to learn from each other. So that's short-term rental side of things. And then from a media standpoint, I'm sitting in a podcast studio that we put a lot of effort into building. I just say I allocate a lot of time to like helping other people build businesses. Obviously, I'm uniquely suited to help people build short-term rental property management businesses. But I am intellectually curious about other types of businesses. So spending a lot of time now on the media side of things, largely, through my fiance and what she's got going on. But over the course of my life, like, I wouldn't be surprised if I do another dozen types of businesses in different fields. I think maybe I'm just curious in that sense. I currently don't have gray hairs, but maybe if I do a dozen more, next time you see me, I might be a little balder or something. But Yeah, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but yeah, I do. You do a lot of different things and try to make sure you work out every day, try to make sure you're healthy and just keep moving the puck forward on everything.
Yeah. And kind of answer my next question, which was going to be like, okay, I don't think I know my answer for this, but do you think you would stay in this industry long term, right? Like, is there an end goal? Would you go into other industries, start other businesses? So since you answered that, it's yes. I'm curious, like, what industry or sector would you jump into post STRs? I'm always curious. And on the gray hair comment, there's a reason why my barber shaves down this low, so that way the grays don't show anymore. So I'm feeling I'm getting salt and red pepper flakes, if you know what I'm saying.
No, definitely. I would say to me, and the foundation of owning real estate, I always want to be there. So I always want to know that, push comes to shove, I have a handful of houses that, can pay my bills. Maybe not the bills, New York City bills, but maybe a slightly less expensive bill. So I want to continuously build out the ownership portfolio, but I'm not trying to over lever or go for glory. Just I have the strategies that I know work, like the properties I'm getting great assets at a good price, and I know how to operate them. I know how to create an experience. Like that's kind of my foundation, and that allows swinging for home runs, doing other things. So yeah, right now have leaned into media a little bit the last several months. So to me, it makes sense that if I was going to do something outside short-term rentals, it might be media related. But we're not there yet. We're doing what we're doing, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm always curious, and if media is the next venture, right? Like I can already tell you, and we've had many talks. I'm like, media is hard. It's good, but it's hard. It's fun. You have to learn a lot, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into every software and every channel and all the stuff. And yeah, you get it. And totally. The listeners, for people that don't run a podcast network or media company, it's a lot to juggle, especially in our sector. But I also kind of want to go into like the navigating failures piece. I know I've failed in business, my first company before getting into hospitality officially, and launching Hospitality FM and the other supporting businesses I have now. I failed miserably. I had a chauffeur company, got cars, took them on a bunch of debt, bought party buses, employed people, didn't know about this thing called Uber, didn't look into software and streamlining operations, all this stuff. And I went under. I lost it all. And it was a great lesson to learn, very expensive lesson to learn. But how do you navigate through the failures that you've experienced, whether it's, prior to getting into the industry or even through failures of buying properties or hosting or anything like that? I'm curious on how you navigate through it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't take anything as a failure. I mean, I think even you could probably say from those experiences, you learned a million things. Maybe you learned what not to do, but you still learn. I mean, I have stressors, like things happen on a daily basis. I mean, boats, honestly, like to me, houses, houses, like they don't move, like they just are, generally speaking, they kind of, well, knock on, I mean, there's been some crazy hurricanes. But the boats are moving, there's people might be drinking, like it's a stressful business to be in. So I would say, the boat business maybe gives me like more, my stomach is a little stronger, doing some other things. But I've had like 300 person parties at my properties, like where like there were gunshots like in the window, like the police were repelled by gunshots. The police didn't get shot by gunshots. Sorry, let me just be clear. But in their police report, it said they were repelled by gunshots. So I've had like very stressful experiences.
Good Lord.
But I think if anything, those have, and I'm, chances are going to have more of them. Hope, knock on wood. But I would say it's just part of it, and you got to just wake up the next day and keep battling and, keep moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's true. I guess like true, but I always think like obviously there's hurdles and there's time when you're like, all right, that didn't work. Move on.
Yeah, and you sell off things that aren't huge winners. I mean, like I have a couple I sold a house last year. I was a partnership I had with, tons of different investors and different people. And we had a 5-year balloon payment, and didn't look like the refi, we were going to be able to cash flow post refi. So we just sold it. 2 houses in Florida where the insurance costs have just gone astronomical. It does look like they've like flattened out, but we didn't, we got it, we were estimating 3-4K a year of insurance. And now we're at, 20K a year of insurance. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. There's not that much, not that much profit. So what do? You just you sell the asset and you move on. Obviously, you get into a pickle if you buy something, take on debt, and then you can't sell it. That would obviously be a challenge. But definitely have to continually re-underwrite. And when you have losers, like I told you, that second boat rental location, for all sakes and purposes, it was a success. We were renting the boats out for more, but I couldn't, I wasn't there. It was hard to staff people. When the boats would break, I didn't really trust that we had a team member there who would fix the boat. So one day, just literally myself, I just went out there, I took the boats and I moved them back to the other location and just said, I'm done with this. It's been great, honestly, arguably more profitable than our other location, but there's just logistical complexities that are making it so the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Plus, at this point, I'm doing other things now that are more like my growth opportunities.
Yeah. What do you think, from that market, just out of curiosity, was it just a bad labor market for you to find team members to come kind of build out a full-on business on this lake? Or what, again, obviously competitors moved in too, so I understand that, but was it just poor labor, or what do you think that kind of scenario was?
Yeah, so I think I maybe shot myself in the foot. So my childhood best friend, he was a medical scribe making $12 an hour. And I was kind of like, yo, man, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Look at what these boats are making. All right, let's do this. Let's start a second location. I've done the research on this market. I think there's demand. I figured out where we can keep the boats. I've gotten the insurance for it. Just here, you're the call center. I built the website. It's going to call your phone, pick up, rent the boats out. We'll do a 50-50 partnership on it or something of that sort. And then doing that, I was also like, oh, also, by the way, these houses are making a lot of money too, and they're really easy and chill. You can do them from anywhere. And I started teaching him and showing him about the houses. Now he manages 10 houses at the beach in North Carolina, and he just lives at the beach and chills and surfs every day. So it was kind of hard once he started doing the houses, which was largely that off season. He grew his management portfolio. Once he started doing the houses, he was like, wait, do I want to go out and have to it's 100 degrees out. I have to get the boat. I have to go out on the water. I have to meet the customers. I have to wait around all day. Or maybe I just chill at the beach and, have this app Airbnb on my phone and deal with 3 guest messages over the course of the day that I can respond to after I go out and hit some waves. So I that was the actual issue that happened with that business. It was a partnership with a friend, and then the friend got into co-hosting and Airbnb management, and it was hard to get him to come back to work after that.
Pros and cons of teaching people the secret sauce.
I've shot myself in the foot a few times with a few different things, I must say.
Hey, but
he's my best friend. He's my boy. I'm happy he's successful. I'm happy he's living the life he wants to live. And that I could, be a part of it.
100%. Yeah. My first short-term rental management company was a luxury property management biz with 2 other partners, and that partnership didn't work out. We didn't vet each other enough. We didn't get to know each other enough. And some people weren't honest right out the gate on what they wanted to do and how they wanted to grow. And, that's fine. You can admit that. And I think it's good to speak it publicly, because I know everyone listening, I think I've told you we have a little over about 1.5 million listeners a year. And, it's great to hear the success, but everyone listening is not always getting success, right? That's the thing. So I love to be able to talk about this stuff. And I guess for you, my kind of final question to wrap up the episode is sustainable growth. How do you envision growing sustainably in your business? How do you, what are the practices you're putting in place to make sure that the businesses are sustainable long-term and growing successfully without, like you said, shooting yourself in the foot or getting to a point where the juice is no longer worth the squeeze?
Yeah. So, and if I'm going to break it down again, we have the real estate business. We want that to be the core, the foundation. So that means on the upfront, like taking on good assets. If go for a bunch of, sketchy sketchy is I'm gonna use that as a I'm not
Low
alluding to it.
performing.
Yeah,
Budget, economy. Yeah.
Sure, exactly. Like, do you think those are going to stand the test of time? Or, when I look for places, I look for natural scarcity. I look for things that can't be easily recreated. So they continue to perform well, over, 3-4 years. At the beginning, that meant lake houses. I didn't think they were going to be building many more lakes. Now that means different things in different places. I actually bought a 6,000 square foot barn in July, and I'm actually going down, or I'm flying. Won't say where I'm flying, but I have a flight this weekend, and I'm going to look at some unique properties halfway across the country. So getting good assets on the upfront, making sure my team members, I have virtual assistants, making sure that if we take on more properties, that like we're not going to have chinks in the armor. It's not going to create more stresses for me. So that's really important, and just really everything I do, I try to make sure that we have machines that might be taking a hit, on salary, for BNB Calc, for example. Like I don't really make money there, which is fine because we have team members who, are dedicated, motivated, and, we brought them in, and I'm, maybe I take a cash hit, but it is what it is. They're helping us build a business, help us make a better product that's helping more and more people out there. So don't be greedy, I would say. Like, your team is everything. Like, you can't, like, I think like a lot of times during the day, if I do something and I'm like, did I have to do this? Like, was this something that I individually like had to do, or could someone else have done it? If the answer is the latter, okay, who could do it? Like, how do I onboard them? How do I make sure they don't have too many questions for me? So yeah, pretty much it's just like a continual exercise of reevaluating like everything you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, no, 100%. Again, for the listeners, it's good to hear the lessons learned, because even for me, like I didn't take a salary from Hospitality FM or pay myself until December last year. And that was because I wanted a team. I want to make sure my team can make money. I want to make sure that we can invest in growth. And, the ability to see that, honestly, as you kind of were mentioning with BNB Calc, right? Like to not really make money, but to have this business and you're promoting it and you're bringing attention to it. I think there's a certain type of different capital that comes with that. It's not financial. It's time capital. It's brand capital. And I think entrepreneurs in our industry, or entrepreneurs in general, really should think about the different types of capital that we're putting in play, whether it's time, human, or financial capital. So it's a really good comment and really good kind of lessons learned along the way. Jeremy, I know it's been a long time coming to get you on the show, and we're hitting that normal time run mark here. But for the listeners' sake, we always like to ask kind of for where can they learn to, find out more about you, to connect. Obviously, you're a part of Hospitality FM with your podcast, so we'll make sure that your show is linked in the show notes for people to be able to listen to your great interviews. And thank you again for having me on your show in New York. It was so much fun to actually do an in-person podcast. But yeah, where can people go to learn more and connect? Yeah,
so I do try to really share everything that I learn. I try to be very transparent, and from the day-to-day perspective, Instagram, Jeremy Werden, LinkedIn, Jeremy Werden. If you guys want to try BNB Calc, we have a 7-day free trial. If you use it and you love it, that's great. Let me know. If you use it and you don't like it, you have any feedback, would love to hear your feedback. Like, I'm all ears. I mean, if you look at my content and you say, hey, I want you to like post more about X, Y, or Z, like I love when people give me feedback, positive or negative. So would love to hear from you. Again, it's Jeremy Werden across all social medias, including TikTok as well.
Perfect. Obviously, all the listeners know everything's going to be in the show notes. So grab the links that you would desire to connect with Jeremy on, because obviously, I think it's super important to make sure that not only we're putting out great content for our listeners, but the listeners are able to show the love right back to the people like you that join the show. So really thankful for you taking the time over the last hour to really sit down with me, kind of break down the businesses, break down your journey, be vulnerable, showing the ups, downs, shot in the foots, the juices of lack of squeezing, and all the other good stuff. It's been a lot of fun, Jeremy, and I'm super thankful for our friendship. And yeah, really appreciate you being on the show today.
I'm thankful for you, man, and everybody listening. Y'all are in the presence of a legend. Wil is the man.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. All right, Slick Talkers, you know exactly what to do. Grab the links, like and subscribe to all things Jeremy Werden, BNB Calc, you name it. They're going to be right here in the show notes, like always. And of course, we'll see you guys again next week.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Wil Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.